Alrighty, so welcome everybody. For those of you guys that are on time, you guys are here at the Justuno and Zaius webinar. We're going to be giving you a brand new training today that we're calling From Acquisition to Retention, turning one-time buyers into repeat purchasers. So my name is Jenna and I'm in charge of partner marketing here at Justuno, and I realize my job as a moderator might be a little bit tricky today, as the hosts from both companies today are both named Eric. So welcome Eric from Justuno and Eric from Zaius. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone.
Today, I just kind of want to review what we can expect from the entire training. So I know that both Erics are going to teach us three things. So first, we're going to talk about how to capture new traffic and convert those people to customers. Second, we're going to review some retention strategies that can drive more customer loyalty. And third, I think both Erics have some tips to actually measure your ROI in an effective way. Why is this important? Well, both Erics have told me a couple of things that you need to know before we get started. So first is that 50 to 60% of your current traffic is new traffic. So if you aren't capturing those emails, those can essentially be seen as lost sales. And also 80% of your customers will never make a second purchase. So that's important because you can actually do something today to change that. And both Erics are going to teach us how to do that today. Okay, so why should you stick around? Let's talk about what offers we can have at the end of this. I think Eric from Justuno, we're going to offer a mobile pop-up PDF guide. Can you tell us a little bit about that offer?
Our teams put together the best practices to be friendly with Google's mobile pop-up policies. And it's really straightforward, provides some good examples.
Yeah, I think it shows a lot of just best practice use cases. So that's going to be offered here at the end of the training. And then Zaius, what do you guys have for us today?
Yeah, so it's a guide to maximizing customer lifetime value. So not only going to talk about the importance of lifetime value, how you should measure it, what you should be taking into consideration when you're approaching the topic, but then also four steps to help you get started down the path to maximizing lifetime value.
Awesome. Okay, great. So those PDFs will be up for grabs at the end of the presentation. So if you guys stick around, we'll have those links available for you. Alrighty, so before we get into the meat of the presentation, I would like to just introduce both of our co-hosts a little bit more in depth and let them kind of fill us in on their backgrounds. So Eric from Justuno, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. So my background, I'm actually a former online retailer myself. Grew a online snowboard business up to 20 million in sales from 2005 to 2010. And then when we completed that business, when it was acquired, we tried to figure out where we want to go next. And we always, with our business, recognize the need for conversion optimization with our current on-site visitors. And Justuno sprung up from that. And today we're here.
Great, thanks Eric. And Eric from Zaius, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I head up marketing here at Zaius. I've been here for a couple of years, almost a couple of years now. But I've spent most of my career working with B2C businesses, working with them by giving them marketing technology and services to help them both acquire new customers and grow their businesses. Here at Zaius, I've worked with the sales team, I've worked with the customer success team, plenty of interactions with our customers. So, pretty solid understanding of what it takes to really grow businesses these days.
Great. Well, it sounds like both of you guys have a pretty good grasp on e-commerce, and Eric coming from his own e-commerce company, and then Eric from Zaius, coming from lots of experience with B2C. So I think this presentation should be pretty valuable for folks. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Eric from Justuno, I think I'll let you take it from here.
Sure, yeah. So let's talk about your current website traffic. This is the number one thing that I really like to work with businesses on and digital marketers, is that you're putting all this effort into driving traffic to your website. Statistics say about for every $92 spent to drive traffic, only $1 is spent to convert that traffic. So I like to just set some basic benchmarks. Let's convert 5% of your new traffic. And we'll run through a few just inspirational examples of things you can do, things that I want you to start thinking about to convert that traffic into leads. At Evo, they run a giveaway. This is a fantastic way to capture an email address whether you're running, Google ads, Facebook ads, you have organic traffic. First-time visitors they have a high bounce rate and a low sales conversion rate. So what we want to do is, but they're interested in your brand. So a very low impact way to capture a lead from them is to run a giveaway. And we see huge, phenomenal success with this. And that way you capture the email address and then you can retarget them at a later date. If you don't have gear to give away, another great example is content. The ebooks, people are, they're doing their research online. And if you can provide them value and become the authority and train them, and they look to you and deem you the educator, then that's a fantastic way to capture a lead's interest. And that way, when you do respond back to them with an email, they have a high rate of engagement, open rates, which Eric can talk about. The other is you can have fun. The basic pop-up is what people started with. And what we're doing nowadays, fast forward to 2017, there's a lot of fun ways you can engage with visitors. This is an example of a spin to win. And Blenders has seen I think this has a 30% increase in engagement just by having something that's fun and interactive. So, Eric can kind of move further into now, once we've captured these emails, what are we going to do with them? And, Eric, would you like to kind of cover converting, what we're going to do to convert those emails?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, absolutely critical that you're identifying new website visitors by, giving them a reason and incentive to supply you with their email address and really give you permission to start communicating with them. But it's just as critical to immediately, take advantage of that situation, the privilege of communicating with them by delivering compelling, engaging communications right out of the gate. So you're not wasting any time between when they supply their email address and when you're driving that first purchase. So over the next, 10 minutes or so, I'll talk more about the strategies that go into that. But the keys here are, take action quickly, be relevant, be engaging, and don't let time get away from you. So into the next section here, we're going to talk about retention strategies really designed to increase repeat purchases and loyalty. And we'll talk about why that's important and how you can approach it. So this stat here is it's one of my favorite stats to talk about, but for a lot of businesses out there, it's also kind of a depressing stat, which is more than 80% of your first-time customers will never make a second purchase from your brand, and that's a lot of customers that are coming in, making one purchase, and then you're never hearing from them again. And there are some verticals where this tends to be a little higher or a little lower, but generally across the board in e-commerce, you can expect that you're only going to keep about 20% of those first-time buyers. And so the reason why this is, there are lots of reasons, but the reality is that there are millions of e-commerce websites out there right now, and that means that there are millions of options for consumers when they're making a purchase. So, it's kind of like the old analogy of filling a bucket with a hole in it. Every time you add somebody in, you're losing a whole bunch, and especially when it costs 5 times more to acquire a new customer than to sell to an existing one. This is a pretty scary problem for a lot of businesses. So, it goes without saying that it's absolutely critical to continue focusing on acquisition. That's always going to be important. You can't have a business without it. But did you know that so returning customers will actually spend 67% more than first-time customers? And then there are other stats out there, like if a retailer could retain 10% more customers, they'd essentially double their revenue. So retention is important, and it stands to reason that the companies that do the best job at driving retention and loyalty are the companies that are going to win. So over the next few minutes, I'll go through a couple of themes here, a few themes. So segmentation, personalization, and lifecycle automation as core themes that you should be incorporating into everything you do as a B2C marketer. And then introduce a few practical campaigns that you can actually take those themes, infuse them into, and start taking action today. So the first thing we're talking about here is customer segmentation. Kind of what I think is a sad reality, and I think many businesses are learning this, is that sending bulk communications or batch and blast communications is it's just no longer working for marketers, right? So customers are expecting personalized experiences. They want to feel like your brand knows who they are and is speaking to them as an individual. So this batch and blast kind of communication is just not working anymore. Not only are you going to be missing out on large opportunities to engage your customers more effectively, but you're probably driving up unsubscribe rates on your communications as well if you're doing this. So what we recommend is start to segment your customers, and that means create groups of customers that it could be based on how many purchases they've made. One purchase, a loyal customer, repeat purchaser. It could be based on attributes like location or gender or even acquisition source. And then category affinities are pretty cool. So if you've got a category specific promotion to send out, why send it to your whole customer base? You could, those people could have shown zero interest in the category that you're promoting, and sending an email about pants to customers who have never shown intent to purchase pants kind of can be perceived as irrelevant, and you're missing out on an opportunity to communicate with something they actually care about. And then the other reason segmentation is important is because you're going to be able to actually look at an individual group of your customers, let's say your loyal customers, and say, I know my loyal customers have an average order value of X, a lifetime value of Y, typically takes them 3 months to get there, whereas first-time purchasers may look entirely different, and that kind of information informs your business and the decisions you make every day.
Yeah, I think this is a really great point. If I can just chime in there really quick, Eric, is that, a lot of retailers really focus on their list size, like the number on that list. And I think that's a little misleading in terms of conversion. But I think that's a really good point, just because it's not really about the size of your list. It's more about the targeted offer.
Yeah, totally. And it's, that relates perfectly to the next theme we're talking about as well, which is personalization. So there's a whole lot to talk about here. I know that Eric from Justuno is going to talk a little bit about it as well. But just to get us started, it's really about making your customers feel like you're communicating with them as an individual, and the communication kind of feels one-to-one. Customers expect a personalized experience and one that is unified across the channels you communicate with them. There's plenty of data out there to suggest that consumers buy significantly more from retailers who personalize the shopping experience across channels. So like real basic example of personalization, your customer adds something to their cart, an hour later, they haven't checked out. Send them an email. It's a cart abandonment email. We've all heard of it, but actually showcasing the product that they added to their cart, that's a very basic example of personalization. Something more advanced, something more interesting you could start adding a personalized section of your newsletters or your sale emails, right? So you've kind of got, in a newsletter, you might have your big headline up top that goes to everybody, but the next section features products that this person has either browsed or added to their cart in the past. So you can start to use personalization to infusing your campaigns with personalization across the board.
And that kind of leads into, the next section, which is, to me, one of the most exciting things today is that in this example, we have Vineyard Vines. They've sent this email, and Eric mentioned the unified campaign. If someone clicks an email and lands on your website, how great would it be to reinforce that email campaign on site? And this is where we're bridging the gap of personalized experience and increasing engagement and conversion rates. In this example, they've clicked a 30% off email sale, landed on the website, and we're reinforcing the code they're using on the site. Because oftentimes some people will open an email on their phone and maybe not click right away, but then they'll go to the website later, vice versa. A lot of different interactions scenarios. With the profiling cross device, you can target them on site, reinforcing that message, which is, to me, one of the newest and easiest things to do to increase sales conversion, campaign performance all around. And the next slide is, another example of, if you really want to, you don't have to build a landing page. This is just a full screen takeover where you can reinforce whatever they've clicked through to land on your website. Like, hey, that is what you clicked. Let's learn more about this in this example. And then the final one, building upon the cart abandonment example that Eric showed within email, what you can do is actually when someone's leaving a particular product, you can dynamically present an offer on that product. So you can either get them to convert at that exact moment by presenting a code, or you have an email that you can pass through to your cart abandonment.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong example. And it's just like, if you do send them a cart abandonment email and they open it up and they click through and land on your website, you can still present them the same abandonment offer. If they're about to exit that page again, you can show them the product again and just reiterate that message that you've already sent through email. So kind of keeping in line with that full campaign.
And the overall theme is, not ending your campaign by sending an email, following that user all the way through the funnel to the shopping cart. And that's where digital marketers really need to take ownership is to the sales conversion. How are we going to get that visitor, not just back to the site or to the site, but through that funnel all the way?
Yeah, and that ties perfectly back into what we were talking about before, which is delivering that unified experience across channels, right? Customers want to see that when they get an email about something, when they get to the landing page or the website, it's consistent. When they make their way through to make a purchase, it's consistent, and that goes a really long way in developing relationships with your customers. So couldn't agree more. So the next one, and kind of the last big theme we're talking about here is lifecycle automation, right? So what you're seeing here is actually a bunch of customer segments that make up a life cycle, and different businesses have different ways of looking at this, but generally at a high level, basic segmentation by how many purchases has a customer made, and more specifically by the buying behaviors they're exhibiting, like consideration or intent. So maybe somebody's browsed a product detail page once or twice. Maybe they've added something to a cart. You should be treating these people differently. Now, in your life cycle, once you understand it, it's important to start automating and optimizing your communications throughout a customer's life cycle. You don't want to be speaking to a customer who just entered the doors the same way that you're speaking to a loyal customer. They're different and they deserve to be treated differently. So some examples of these automated campaigns, we've already talked about welcome series a little earlier on, but having a campaign that goes out immediately to new customers as soon as they're identified, all the way through to behaviorally triggered campaigns like cart and browse abandonment, to post-purchase follow-up campaigns, loyalty campaigns, and eventually win-back campaigns as well for your customers who have churned. And when designed well, and actually when they take your customer's life cycle into consideration, these campaigns can be super effective at driving customers through your life cycle. So these are a few practical campaigns that can take these three themes into consideration. You'll see here welcome series, post-purchase, and win-back. There are a whole ton of lifecycle campaigns that you can set up and automate for your business, but these are just three. So the welcome series being the series of communications you immediately send out to your newly identified customers. So as Eric was mentioning earlier, you've done a great job of getting that email address. What's next? This is your customer's first experience with your brand. You want to make sure that if possible, you're personalizing it based on their browsing behavior. You want to make sure that you're offering some kind of incentive to drive that first purchase as quickly as possible. Remember, these people just gave you their email address, so they're pretty engaged, they're interested in your brand. You want to take advantage of that and focus on driving that first purchase as soon as possible. With a post-purchase campaign, lots of businesses have different ideas of what they want to do here. Some, like Zappos, focuses on soliciting a review from the customer who just made the purchase. Others will offer a discount to try to drive that second purchase or that third purchase as soon as possible, since the customer is highly engaged. And then others will use it to sell products from a different category. So I know that people who bought Sperry topsiders are very likely to then go buy a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses. So I want to use that to my advantage and actually start selling Ray-Ban sunglasses in a follow-up email. For a win-back campaign, businesses have different definitions when they churn their customers. Some 30 days, 60, 90, it really depends on what your product buying cycle is. But a win-back campaign, you want to be direct. You want to acknowledge the elephant in the room, right? So you had a relationship, you don't really have one anymore. Be funny about it, make it personal, personalize it, right? So include some products that they may have viewed or used in the past. And all of this requires being able to segment your customers into, these are my churned customers, so this is who I'm going to target. So those are some of the ways that segmentation, personalization, and automation can actually come together to deliver very effective and compelling campaigns to your customers.
And Eric, just a question on that. What would you recommend for someone who wants to get started today? What do you think is the easiest one to implement? Would you say it's the welcome series?
Yeah, definitely, because the others, welcome series are very straightforward, right? So you get somebody's email address, you start communicating with them, and you can get something up very quickly. Whereas post-purchase and win-backs, you want to understand a little bit more about, how soon after a purchase should I send it? Kind of depends on the cycle of purchasing in your business. With a win-back, you got to understand at what point is a customer actually turned. If your average buying cycle is 90 days, then I wouldn't want to use a 60-day definition there, right? So it takes a little bit more understanding about your business. Whereas a welcome series, yeah, you can get that up tomorrow, at least a basic version.
Cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and move forward into discussing how to best measure the ROI of these campaigns. So Eric from Zaius, I guess I'll go ahead and let you introduce this section as well.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the whole idea here is you're now in a place where you're starting to run campaigns that are a lot more conscious of your customer's life cycle and driving them through it. So you need to start measuring it that way. So, when the traditional way that marketers have been measuring their campaigns and the impact of their marketing overall, it is fairly limited. And so there's a lot of focus on opens and clicks and visits. And those metrics are important, and they're important to understand how well your individual campaigns are performing. Does changing a subject line increase the open rate? These are all important things. But these aren't metrics that your boss comes to you getting all excited about, right? Like your boss cares about revenue. Your boss cares about how many customers you're generating, new customers, how many loyal customers are you generating. And so if you're not measuring your marketing that way, it's really hard to actually start to drive performance against those metrics. So, if you really want to impact a customer's life cycle and the metrics that your boss cares about and that your business cares about, you need to be able to measure and optimize against them. And that's why really the best B2C marketers are tracking metrics like customer lifetime value, average order value, new customer rates, and repeat purchase rate, which is one of my favorite, coming back to that 80% metric. And when you start to optimize your campaigns to drive performance against metrics like these, they're going to be a lot more effective at doing so.
I think adding on to that, Eric, the two key metrics I love for people to take away that they can track is one, what % of visitors are you engaging and converting to email leads? If you ask yourself right now, what's my daily traffic? What % of that traffic am I capturing an email from? It's a nice benchmark just to start from, and something you can report to your boss and really track and show campaign performance. And the second is, ask yourself, like, are you bringing a unified experience across channels and on site, to complete that sales funnel? So if you can show that you sent an email and we actually had an increase in sales, like on-site engagement and sales conversion over your standard campaigns by running a reinforcing promotion on site, that's a big win. So, a couple basic takeaways without getting into full details of like all the metrics you can track. you just start looking at those two, I think you can see an improvement right away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about measuring the metrics that you're trying to impact, right? So whether that's conversion on your website through to loyal customer generation, you just have to be able to measure it. And very closely related to measurement is testing, right? So you should always be testing. This is not a new concept. Everybody knows they should be doing it, and most people are. It's important to test basic elements of your communications, like subject line, graphics, and copy. These are things that if you're not doing them today, you need to start tomorrow, because you're never going to learn how to make your marketing more effective unless you're testing different elements of it. On the right example on the right here, it's a simple button test. Button on the left says download the white paper. Button on the right says get your free copy. Now, this is an example from our B2B business, but this works just as effectively in B2C, and actually, dealing with the types of volumes B2C typically deals with can be even faster, and you can learn even more. So
Eric,
definitely encouraging. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we could actually use this. Do you know which button worked better?
Yeah, get your free copy. Worked like 20% better.
There you go. The word free, it's very powerful.
It still is powerful. Yeah, download sounds like, I have to do something. Get your free copy sounds like, just hand it to me.
Customer psychology is a fascinating thing. You never want to make the user feel like they have to do some work. You want to make it sound like whatever you're offering is doing it for them.
Totally. Yeah, and then in addition to things like buttons, some of our customers are starting to test things like time of day, frequency of communications, how many communications over a given month versus over a given week. There are so many different elements of campaigns that you can test. It's important to move beyond the basics as well if you have the ability to do so.
Cool. Yeah, and similar to A/B testing your emails, your pop-ups you can A/B test. All the basic standard things, your copy, images, the call to action, the CTA, the length of the promo, the type of promo and strategy you implement. The example we're seeing here is we call it the two-step versus the three-step. Two-step being you present the offer and then they receive the offer. The second would be a three-step where you actually do an intro screen where you can pose a question. Would you like 20% off? Yes or no? And then they click yes. Then you actually present what the offer and how you redeem it. Believe it or not, just that short question shows a 20 to 30% higher rate of engagement because there's no commitment right up front. Those are just the basics of what you can A/B test. And, once you start playing around with your on-site visitors and seeing we have clients that'll go from a 300 to 1,000% rate of increase of email capture, sales conversion. We'll see people go from a 0.57 up to 1.37 in sales conversion overnight just by focusing on their on-site visitor. So it's one of those areas where we just love to see people start focusing, engaging, and sharing their successes. So, just can't encourage you enough to take that time to really focus on that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think on the point of A/B testing, both of you guys can probably speak to this, but just reinforcing to the business owner that they do need to A/B test. If they see something that's working for another company and they simply just copy that and implement it, it may not work just because their audience is probably different or their target demographic is different. So, one thing here at Justuno we always recommend is, yes, take that as inspiration for what could work for you, but always A/B test it on your audience.
What I tell people, the word A/B test, as a business owner myself, I kind of cringe when I hear it because it's hard enough just to get the first version live. So that's where it's, you can't screw up, in my opinion. If you have someone on your website, it's no different than someone walking into your store. Just approach them, and as a sales rep, whatever, it may not be the best approach when they walk in your store, but just engage with them, and over time, just keep seeing what works, and you can apply your changes as you go. And if you get more advanced, you can start testing. And that's where, with us running, promotions on 10,000 websites across the globe, we're here to help kind of educate you as well in terms of best practices and what we're seeing across our entire platform of users. Which kind of gets us into maybe the next slide of, one of the biggest questions we've been getting recently is Google and the recent policy updates on PopUps. And really encourage you to download. We have this case study here. It's actually more of a white paper, where when someone's clicking to your site from a search engine result page, Google kind of did some updates. So any mobile promotions that you're running, we provide the best practices to it. Answers all the questions you have. You can still run mobile promotions, no problem. And we've kind of outlined it for you. So we highly encourage you also to look at your mobile traffic differently than your desktop traffic. Eric can probably speak also to this in terms of open rates with emails on mobile versus desktop. But, definitely don't consider this traffic the same as desktop. And we encourage you to run a different type of promotion for your mobile visitors.
Cool. Yeah, and on our report here on the lifetime value, really what it's going to do is give you a better understanding of why lifetime value is such an important metric to measure. Give you some ideas about how you can actually use the information once you have it. But the key theme here in this white paper and really the first step and what makes the other steps possible is establishing a view of all your customers' behaviors and attributes that spans across channels and devices. And having a robust, comprehensive view of your customers is so important to being able to segment more powerfully, to personalize more powerfully, to be able to understand where a customer is in their life cycle, and then ultimately be able to report on all of the progress you've made and really how your marketing is impacting metrics that really matter to your business. So, if there's one takeaway here, it's creating that unified view, that source of truth for your business. But there's a whole lot more in there that we hope you can learn a lot from and help to scale your business with.
So Eric, it also looks like we have a free CRO review with the Justuno rep. Can you tell us a little bit more about that offer as well?
Yeah, we encourage everyone to talk with our CRO experts, our conversion rate optimization experts, because there's some very basic things we can suggest and implement for you that you can see the instant ROI. Within 5 minutes, we can be capturing more emails and increasing sales conversion. And our team's available. So Jenna, how would they go about signing up for that?
Yeah, so sure. There's going to be a link that pops up here in the right-hand sidebar. If you guys just click that, and you can pick a time to book a call with one of our experts, Matt, and it should be pretty straightforward from there.
Great.
Cool. Alrighty, guys. Well, that was a lot of really educational information. Thank you for making time to present to us today, and thanks everybody for joining in. So if you guys would like to hang around, we're going to do a couple of Q&A questions. I asked both Erics to bring some commonly asked questions from clients or prospective customers. So Eric from Zaius, I thought we could go ahead and start with you. So first question for Zaius is, how do you know the best time to implement a win-back campaign?
Right. So yeah. So with win-back campaigns and with some other lifecycle campaigns as well, there's no black and white answer to this question. Really, what it comes down to is having an understanding of your business and having an understanding of what is your typical purchase cycle, and when should you expect customers to come back. Because if you're selling accessories or something kind of lower in value with a traditionally higher frequency of purchase, having somebody, not seeing somebody for a couple of months can actually be an indicator of being at risk or churn. Whereas if you're selling something higher value with like a lower frequency of purchase, maybe a $200 pair of jeans or something like that, you shouldn't expect to see people every month or every 2 months. It's probably more like a 6-month buying cycle. again, it comes down to understanding your business. So there's no definitive answer here. It's all about identifying that period of time at which, this is when I should have seen somebody. I haven't seen them. They're going to move into my win back campaign now. I'm going to define them as churned. Yeah, so that's really the best way I can answer that question. I would say the same thing about, when should I send my post-purchase email? Anything that's related to buying cycles is all dependent on your business.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And again, if you guys have further questions, or if, you have questions about any answers that are given, go ahead and type your questions into the chat bar and we can answer them from email. Okay, so next question, let's move to Eric from Justuno. I think a really common question for people looking at pop-ups for the first time is, what are the top converting pop-ups? Or like, what are the ones that, are the main couple of pop-ups that we would recommend somebody to set up today?
Yeah, that's kind of the classic, like, what should I do today? And I love to introduce two things. One is the new visitor lead capture, capturing emails from your new visitors. And the second would be cart abandonment offers. And that's what we call an exit offer, where if a visitor is on the cart page, they've added an item to their shopping cart, they are then leaving. You can look at your statistics of how many people add items to your cart, percentage that actually convert, and it's astonishingly high how many cart abandon every day. So what we do is, and you look at the reasons why people are leaving the cart, the number one reason is understanding those, which is shipping costs. The second is they know users are trained to search for coupon codes. And that's the first thing website owners have to accept. And once they have accepted that, what we recommend doing is presenting what we call an unlocked offer, which is when someone's leaving the shopping cart, present them a coupon code at that exact moment, and you'll see an increase in sales conversion. And those can be set up very easily.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting topic too, is around discounts. A lot of retailers are really scared of offering their first discount because they think, oh my gosh, my clients or my customers are going to get used to this. But I think for both Justuno and Zaius, both of you guys can speak to this. It's all about offering that discount to the right person. So I know on the Justuno side, we have very specific targeting rules that you can install on your pop-ups to say, okay, I only want to show this offer to this person, so that doesn't get out of hand. But Eric, I'm sure that you guys can also speak to that in terms of what you offer via email. And you may have had the same worry from some of your customers.
I think I can handle that one for them. That gets into the segmentation, and with Eric's emails, what they're doing is they're actually segmenting their customers, so they know if it's still a customer that has not purchased, they're going to be sending them emails with first time purchase incentives. And then building upon that is, going back to the statistics that Eric shared, that 80% of your customers are only shopping once. If 80% of your customers were coming back to buy again, then, that's a bigger problem and conversation. But, as soon as you become comfortable with discounting and using it, you see you're no longer a cynic. Of course, margins are a critical component of retail. And so you have to experiment and find that right discount promotion to make the sale. And you can get creative. You can do 75, a hefty percent off a single item, which actually will save you. You don't have to do the whole order. You can do things like that. Shipping, we want to make sure, which is the number one reason people don't check out, make sure, if you do charge for shipping, you can run a discount promotion on shipping. That way you're not affecting your relationship with your distributors, protecting your margin, and picking up new sales. Shopify, I can finish on, they queried their entire platform for 2016 and found that retailers that use coupon codes had an 8% higher sales. So
yeah, and
work.
Yeah, definitely, it certainly does, and in talking to some of our customers, what this kind of ties in discounting and segmentation. There are segments of customers who are highly responsive and sensitive to discounts, and there are others that aren't. So you can, when it comes to segmentation, the possibilities are endless. But one thing that we see a lot is segmenting customers into discount and non-discount shoppers. So there's no reason to go out there and start throwing discounts to everybody when half or whatever percentage of your customer base really isn't even inclined to respond to them. So that's one way you can do it. You can also segment your customers into these are customers that respond to discount codes. These are customers that respond to dollar off sales. These are customers that respond to percentage off sales. And having that level of understanding and be able to target your communications like that can not only help you be more effective, but be more efficient.
Yeah, I think that kind of targeting is just super powerful. I mean, if you go back to the stat that you shared with us earlier, I don't remember exactly what it was, but about how much more valuable, a repeat customer is. And I think, this type of learning that you can do through segmentation can only attribute toward that. So it's, worth putting in the work and the resources toward that instead of, continuing to pump, ad dollars or money into new acquisition when those costs are going to be much higher. But going off of the topic of segmentation, Eric from Zaius, another question that you guys receive a lot are what are the top few segments that every marketer should be targeting?
Yeah, so again, there are lots of ways to answer this, but I'd say regardless of your business, have an understanding of who your loyal customers are, who your new customers are, who's in the middle of the funnel, who's churned, who's at risk. Like that kind of broad life cycle segmentation is really important because, as I mentioned earlier, there's no reason why you should be speaking to a new customer with the same message and tone and offers that you would a loyal customer. So first and foremost, regardless of what business you're in, life cycle segmentation is important. If you're a multi-category, segmenting your customers into category affinities. So if I'm an apparel retailer, these are my customers who frequently buy pants. These are my customers who frequently buy shirts, shoes, the list goes on. But whatever your main categories of products are, it's always a good idea to be able to segment your customers at that level as well. So that way, when you do have a category-specific promotion, you can be very targeted about it, you're being more efficient, more effective again.
Great, okay. And then I guess we'll do one more question for Eric from Justuno. And this kind of actually relates to what Eric from Zaius was just talking about. But one question that we get a lot at Justuno is a lot of people perceive pop-ups as solely new acquisition. So Eric, can you talk a little bit about how a pop-up can work with marketing outside of new visitor acquisition? I know you touched briefly on this throughout the presentation, but maybe you can kind of sum it up here.
Yeah, the email captures the obvious. The second is what we touched on was the unified marketing message, and that's just engaging with your website visitors. What messaging can you convey to them? Well, you can reinforce the email marketing message. It's the no-brainer. Other areas is you can drive visitors to a sales section on your website. The list kind of goes on. We have a lot of clients that are using Justuno to, if they're running an event, they'll promote the event within their website and drive them to the event page for signups. And then the obvious is sales conversion, where I mentioned the cart abandonment offers that can be run using exit technology. Those are just 4 kind of basic ones, but the whole concept and point is really thinking about your on-site visitor and engaging with them, no different than maybe you would someone that walks into your store, your brick and mortar store.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Alrighty, guys. Well, I guess we can wrap it up now. Thank you for doing a couple of questions. I know for folks that hung around, that was probably pretty valuable. But if you did hang around till the very end, you will be receiving an email with the full replay and links to the PDFs, to both PDFs. So keep your eyes open for that. And Eric from Justuno, Eric from Zaius, thanks so much for your time today. And we look forward to possibly doing a follow-up webinar again.
Great. Thanks, Jenna and everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Jenna, and thanks everybody for coming.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.